Great job. Well, I want to welcome Student Impact we've got in the house today. And then over here, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, Elevate's in the house. Man, I love baptism weekend. And for me, it's so thrilling to watch people go public with their faith in Jesus. And today, I get the privilege to teach, and not just teach. I get to run off stage, put on some board shorts, jump into that baptismal, and get to baptize people, which I'm so fired up about. I love water. And one of my favorite things to do is stand-up paddleboarding. When I lived in Southern California, I would wake up early most days of the week. I'd go out to Newport Beach to this little channel, take my paddleboard, and just start paddling up the channel to the Pacific. And one of my favorite things to do is to actually look at boat names. And you're kind of interesting because you get closer to the larger body of water, and there's these strong names, fortified, corporate names. But when you get farther down the channel, the names just kind of change. I was on vacation last week in Florida, and white sand to white snow. It's okay, it's all right. Going near these boats and going farther down the channel, and the names become much more driven by puns. And so I've been collecting a list over the years of terrible boat pun names. Just like to share some with you. First one was Yahtzee. And it was a dinghy, which is awesome. The second one was Buoys in the Hood, which is awesome. I saw a tugboat once that said The Tug Life, which is great. I saw another boat that said The Whole Truth, Hull, so help me cod, which is awesome. 2 words. I saw another one that said See Alice. You'll get it in a second. See Alice. Terrible. Next one I saw was Naughty by Nature, which is fantastic. Roe versus Wave. and my all-time favorite, someone sent this to me as a picture, was way down in like a river, and the title of it said Cirrhosis of the River, which is just fantastic. Oh man, well, today I'm thrilled that a number of you are going public, and that you will be entering these baptism waters. And before we jump into this festive celebration, we're gonna look at an incredible passage from the book of Ephesians. But first, we have to go back to the very beginning. The Hebrew scriptures begin with darkness, the kind of dark that's filled with vociferous despair, void of all perspective, purpose, or any sense of meaning. It was just darkness covering the entire surface, and the writer portrays this darkness as deep waters thrashing and uncontrollable. In Hebrew, this is a picture of sheer and utter chaos. Waters churning, swells forming, waves crashing, tides rising, and seas surging. It's this unbridled confusion that comes when there is this absence of light. And these conditions are a seafarer's worst nightmare, and for good reason. UNESCO estimates that over 3 million shipwrecks are spread across ocean floors around the planet. 3 million. And as the earliest civilizations began constructing materials together that could float, fishermen began being more and more brave to venture farther and farther out in search of bigger fish. And they needed these markers to help prevent them from drifting away and to inform them of where they actually were in the water. So kids would grab these sticks, they'd light them on fire, they'd go to a specific point and stand, and they'd start waving the signal fire, hoping the fishermen would find the light and that it would guide them back home. And as culture and technology progressed, cities could now send what they had handcrafted or plucked from the fields by ship across the seas to sell and trade with other cities. And this became the most risky and dangerous job in the ancient Near East. No navigational tools, no knowledge of dangerous rocks or points that were dangerous over there. It was just you, a few other sailors, some deckhands, and precious cargo braving the darkness. My friend who sails on the West Coast says, when all you can see around you is unadulterated darkness, it is one of the most frightening things imaginable. It's in moments like these, he says, I can only pray a simple Genesis 1 prayer. Let there be light. Remember in Genesis 1, when it was all darkness, God looked directly into it and simply said, let there be light. And light came bursting forth, and order was established in the face of chaos. And light shined on the darkness, and it created new life out of it. Friends, have you ever been in a season of profound darkness? Maybe you've been filled with such utter confusion about why or how blank could have ever happened in your life. Maybe relational or financial chaos seems to just stalk you. Or maybe hope feels like a foreign and distant concept, and despair just keeps showing up at your front door. Do you need a little light today? I've sat with people who have been wrestling or angry or frustrated with God. And I hear them share their story, their pain, and all I can think and pray internally is, God, let there be light. I've sat with some of you whose marriages are on the rocks, and I hear the way you talk to each other. And in the midst of that chaos, in the midst of that conversation, I pray a simple Genesis 1 prayer, God, let there be light. There's these moments where we'll be sitting, the Willow leadership team, dreaming up new initiatives for this church, trying to discern where God's Spirit is wanting to take us. And I just pray internally, God, let there be light. Let there be light. Bring order. Show us where you want to take us. The rabbis believe that there are 31,102 verses in the scriptures. And what's amazing is that those first few scriptures where God separates dark from light, when he brings and calls out light, they believe that the rest of the scriptures is about helping a people discern light from dark. Light from dark. And Ephesians is this beautiful book that Paul writes, that he's constantly trying to remind us of who you once were and who you now are in Christ. And Paul says in Ephesians chapter 5, for you were once darkness. Not in darkness, we were darkness. Each of us was once absent of light, drifting through the open seas of life without form, void of all meaning. And let's be honest, we definitely weren't thriving. We were in need of a little light. But Paul then says, you were once darkness, but now you are light in the Lord. Live as children of light. The fruit of all light consists of all goodness, righteousness, and truth. And find out what pleases the Lord. You were once absent of light. Now you are light, so live absent of darkness. Be about the things that are good, that promote righteousness, right relationships with God, right relationships with yourself, with the wounds of your story, with your past, right relationships with others, and right relationships with our world. And be truthful. No manipulating, no lying, no being something that you're not. Be truly you, the fullest expression of who God created you to be. See, the fruit of light is whatever is good, right, and true. Be about that. This is what Paul's saying. Live the light and be absent of darkness. Can you imagine what our world would be like if the church were to live the light, to be a representative of the light, to be about the things that are good and right and true? I think it would transform our society. Now, Ephesus was a harbor town.
And it was known for buying and selling and trading of goods. And people came from all over to work or to experience the theater or to watch the sporting events or just participate in the Ephesus way of life. And one of the 7 wonders of the world, the Temple of Artemis, was in Ephesus. And another one of the 7 wonders was right across the Mediterranean Sea, and it was called the Lighthouse of Alexandria. This lighthouse of Alexandria was the first lighthouse ever built. Construction began in 290 BC, and it took roughly 20 years to complete the project. It cost 800 talents, which is roughly $3 million US. And this lighthouse was 450 feet tall with a large bronze mirror in the beacon chamber to project a beam of light from the fire's reflection. People say that the beam of light or the smoke from that fire by day could be seen 100 miles away. And there would be these lighthouse keepers, and their sole responsibility was to make sure that fire never went out. They'd have to clean the mirrors. They would trim the wicks of the 500 plus candles, making sure that there was enough oil, which they got from whales, or gas to fuel the flame. And that wonder, that lighthouse stood until an earthquake in the 1300s that made it crumble. So when Paul writes these words, you were once in darkness, but now you are light, live into light, you have to know that lighthouses are in existence. And some scholars actually believe that before Paul wrote the letter of Ephesians, he actually spent time in this prison on top of this hill in Ephesus overlooking the harbor road. Now, where all of these people are, this would be the harbor road. It was like the main thoroughfare, the main street in Ephesus. And on top of that mountain, in the center, you'll see a little bit of a building. And that was what they believe was a prison. Now, recent studies have shown that this prison had an additional building attached. That's foundation, some scholars say, has the resemblance and makings of a lighthouse. Ephesus was a 250,000 person city. It was a harbor city. It would have had a lighthouse, and many believe that that lighthouse was near and connected to that prison. Because you would want a lighthouse to be on a high point so that it had the best visibility. Or you would want a lighthouse to be near a dangerous point so mariners could enter the harbors safely. But let's just think about it. Let's think about Paul being in prison in Ephesus on top of that hill. And imagine that it's just storming in Ephesus and he's watching the city. And then he sees a light keeper walking and climbing up the stairs to a beacon chamber. And that lighthouse begins to shine a beam of light that would lead seafarers through the storm to safe harbors. See, in the first century, ships and lighthouses were one of the primary Christian symbols for deliverance in the church. Lost at sea, weary seafarers, despair, darkness, and then a little light comes. And that light leads you home. Friends, I just want to tell you today, rescue is possible. You just have to look for the light. And I heard this story recently about a captain on a bridge of a large naval vessel who saw a light directly ahead, and he feared that they were going to collide with it. So he signals, "Alter your course 10 degrees north." The reply came back, "No, alter your course 10 degrees south." The captain then signaled, "Alter your course 10 degrees north. I am the captain." The reply, "No, alter your course 10 degrees south. I am a seaman, third class." Then the captain furiously signaled back, "Alter your course 10 degrees north. I am a battleship." The reply, "No, alter your course 10 degrees south. I am a lighthouse." Sailors have a saying, and it's simply this: lighthouses never lie. You might think you are on course, and then the lighthouse spotlight appears on the horizon, and the crew begins to remark, there's no way that is the lighthouse. But as you steer towards it, you discover that it is indeed the lighthouse. And just like God, a lighthouse is constant. It doesn't play tricks, it doesn't change, it doesn't move, it just shines a light pointing you to safe harbors. And Paul understands this. And he continues to say in Ephesians, everything exposed by the light becomes visible, and everything that is illuminated becomes a light. See, a lighthouse's main job was to send out the light. And Paul is saying that in the dark, whatever is exposed by light not only becomes visible, but transforms into light. You, who were once on the verge of shipwrecking your life, choosing darkness again and again and again, but you've seen the light and you trusted it. And as you make your way towards the harbor, Paul says you are actually becoming transformed to now illuminate the light. See, in the first century, this text was used to speak to the people who were wanting to be baptized. See, every one of us was the captain of our own life, lost at sea, thinking we knew what was best. And when those seas started to surge, and when those waves started to crash, and when the chaos just seemed to enfold and envelop us, we saw that light. And for some of us, we decided to trust that light and to follow that light into safe harbors. What Paul's saying here is that those of us who have decided to be baptized, who are getting baptized today, as we enter in to those waters, as we enter into that safe harbor, we're trading teams. We're no longer team darkness, we are team light. And by entering into those waters, something happens. Paul says it's the beginning of not only you being out in the darkness and the light shining on you. The truth is, God will be at work in you, transforming you to actually be light, to be a lighthouse in your work, in your neighborhood, in your school, on your teams. Everywhere you go, you now get to illuminate and point people towards safe harbors. This is the invitation. Now, what's so beautiful to me is this section of scripture concludes with a hymn that many believe that people would sing as people walked through and participated in baptism. And it was this simple phrase that went like this: wake up, sleeper, rise from the dead, and Christ will shine on you. Awake, rise, and let Christ shine on you. So there's many of you, I imagine, here today who have been wondering, who have been trying to be in control of your own story. And the beauty of the lighthouse picture is that this light is scanning, looking to bring anyone back home. I remember when I was in 8th grade, I rode my bike to church. My parents, I didn't grow up in a Christian home, and I remember sitting in this small little church kind of over here. And the pastor got done giving a message, and he invited people to come forward if they wanted to get baptized. I remember my head was down and kind of lifted to kind of see if anyone else was going to move. And I could kind of sense God saying, go. I don't know, there's just something inside me was like, well, if I see anybody else go, maybe I'll go. And nobody's going. And then I look down and I see my shirt. At the bottom of my shirt, it was the Nike symbol that just simply said, just do it. And I was like, all right. And I stood up and I kind of walked past a few families. I began walking down to Safe Harbor. I got on that baptism. And then from that point on, God began doing something in my story and in my life. What's so beautiful to me about the picture of baptism is that when that light begins to scan, and when you begin to hear that inkling, that whispering from the Spirit, you get that invitation to step out and to come home. And the scriptures say that Christ will shine on you. Jesus said in the book of John, I'm the light of the world. I'm the light of the world. In me, you will be absent of all darkness, all like sin, all of that. You will be made of light. And the invitation is, as you walk forward, you get the chance to have all of heaven watching and celebrating, and Christ shining on you. And in a moment, we're going to get to celebrate a number of these people who have pre-registered, who are fired up to be baptized, and we all get to participate in it. It's not just something we get to watch. I believe that baptism is like a wedding ceremony. I was recently at a wedding and watching the groomsmen, the bridesmaids stand in validation of this incredible couple. And what's amazing is every one of us, we get the chance to stand on behalf of those who are going public, who have said, I'm no longer wanting to be the captain of my own story. I have seen the light, and I want that transformation to happen within me. And we get to celebrate that. You are like the invited family and guests to this incredible wedding ceremony to watch people go from dark to light. And this is going to be an amazing, amazing time. For those of you who are getting baptized, I'm so proud of you. So proud of you. And I imagine that there are some of you here today that God just might be whispering. And my ask for you is that your hands and your heart would just be open. Because that light is seeking and searching. And may it guide you home. With that, I'm going to have Bill come and share. And I'm going to go change.
One of the most vivid lighthouse memories I have is just as a young boy, second or third grade. My father had a 43-foot sailboat that he had sailed across the ocean, had in South Haven, Michigan. We were sailing one evening, and he just said, why don't we sail this all the way over to Chicago? We hadn't planned, we didn't have any provisions or anything, and he was an adventurous sort. And halfway across Lake Michigan, we were getting pounded. Storm came through. One of my pleasant memories, took a little counseling to sort this out, but at one point he was so afraid I was going to get swept overboard that he got a line and he tied me to the winch. What are you doing, Dad? I'm tying you in. You know, I'm like, awesome, you know. And he kept saying, Billy, look for the lighthouse, the Chicago lighthouse. When you see that, we're good. And boy, I remember as a little boy just staring out into the distance, and sure enough, many hours later, there it was. And that's a sign of real hope. And when you get behind a lighthouse, you know, safe in the harbor, everything always goes still. You can't believe it's raging out there. You just go, man, the harbor's secure. Steve said it well. When you receive Christ, and then you obey him in baptism, you come out of the waters of baptism, you go, whew, I feel secure. I feel I've done what God's asked me to do. So I would like to ask all of you who are registered, pre-registered, would you stand for a second? We would just like to thank you, and you can start going up on stage and start filing up. Sure, go ahead. And what we always like to do as people are going up on the stage, we like to show the names. because there's beautiful names here and beautiful ethnicities represented. Look at these beautiful names. Yeah, there's a Vandermolen there. That's Dutch. I can tell it from here. It warms my heart. While they're getting ready, I should remind you, going into a tank of water doesn't redeem anybody in and of itself. It's just regular water. The Bible says when you get to a point where you realize you've lived in darkness too long and you need a strength beyond your own, and you need someone who can be the remedy for the wrongdoings you've committed in your life. The Bible says whoever calls upon the